I should probably ask about the main topic, which I was going to ask you about at the beginning, which was I mean, I'm going to probably butcher it, but there was, as far as I know, I've seen, there is a temporary unbanning, if that's a word, or re-legalization, whatever it may want to be called, of the use of neonicotinoids. So, I mean, I know they're a pesticide, are they? They're usually used as insecticide, and I don't know if you want to try and explain why they feel that now is a time, or they need to re-legalize them or reintroduce them for a period.
I'd like to think, I'm sort of reasonably confident that the impact that some of the green organizations like Friends of the Earth has been very vociferous on this, huge campaign on bees. Same, a lot of World Wildlife Fund, a lot of organizations, Greenpeace, have all been trying to tell the government that Europe have banned neonicotinoids because of the known effects on insects, particularly bees.
So are they an insecticide?
Yes.
A group of insecticides, and they're used for crops because there's an anticipation, or there's an expectation that without them the yields would be lower, I assume, because of various pests.
But I mean, there are a lot of work at the moment, and you'll know more about this than me, really, on trying to change what we do. We have to get away from using chemicals, really. You know, the soil is being damaged because of chemicals. You know, if you compare an old untouched organic area with a modern farm, it's virtually, in terms of organisms in the soil, it's virtually a desert. You know, and chemicals, whatever they're planned specifically to do, they always have other impacts, really. I mean, and you know, chemical companies don't really do 100% job in checking out, well, why were nicotinoids allowed in the first place, really, you know, if they have such impacts, really. Why were another good example of, you know, checking things before it happen, you know, we used to have small microbeads in cosmetics for cleaning our faces and things like that. Didn't check the impacts on the environment, so they were banned. So, you know, they don't go the whole hog in testing things. You know, we've got examples of thalidomide and various other things, really. We need to have a precautionary principle. But, you know, with permaculture, you know, we need to think about the life and long-term life of our soils. I mean, one report has said that, you know, we've only got 100 years of soils left. I mean, once they're being, not only are they being washed out to sea on an island like ourselves, but they're being degraded in terms of, you know, the organisms that grow in the soils. And, you know, neonicotinoids are just one of these, really. We need to find more sustainable ways of farming. And of course, then we come on to beef production, which is a huge problem with methane. Methane is 84 times more potent to greenhouse effects than CO2. So we've got a big problem with that. We need to,
the issue with when people say beef farming, though, is that beef farming is a large, sort of easily you know, tailorable emitter of methane, but to my knowledge, it's nowhere near the main cause of methane production, given that I think landfill is the largest proportion by a long way, and then it's sewage, isn't it? Human sewage as well. So between human sewage and landfill, that accounts for extraordinary amount more than beef farming. But then beef farming is something that's not necessary, whereas you'd say, or potentially say, landfill and sewage, or certainly human sewage, is less tailorable to an average lifestyle. So I think the methane problem can't always be associated with an elimination of beef farming, can it, or not?
Well, there are two issues there. If you look at what's the big picture? The big picture is that unless we bring down the greenhouse effects of methane and CO2, our temperature is likely, by 2050, when the government's working and Europe's working to net zero, by 2050 will probably be between 2 and 4 degrees extra C temperature-wise, which will mean there'll be large-scale destruction of lands, of economic growing lands. There will be movement of refugees from various parts of the world. Be very, very unstable planet for lots of different reasons. We are in a climate emergency, and most councils, even the governments, accepted that. We are in an emergency. We have to do something about it. And yes, sewage is a big problem, and yet so is but the other problem with eating meat is that it takes up the conversion from a plant to an animal. You lose a huge amount of energy, which is wasteful. And if we're trying to feed lots of people, there are two reasons really why we need to think about reducing the amount of meat that we eat. It's a basic fact really at the end of the day.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It comes back to the emergency. You know what? We are, the governments around the world accepting we're in an emergency. My local councils around here accepting that emergency. You know, the fact that methane is 84 times more potent is quite a big problem. Really.
Yeah. No, the only thing I was thinking though is the figures that I saw was, I don't know how accurate they might be, is that the landfill accounts for 62% of methane production anyway. So I mean, I don't know what beef accounts for, because I didn't actually see what I didn't see.
I don't know the figure.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've probably seen things like the farms in. I mean, most as you know, most cattle farms are getting larger and larger to make them more economic. And that has other impacts other than the methane, of course, on the life of the soil. I mean, when you think, one of the key things, there are so many problems here. When you think that only 15% of our rivers are regarded as clean, and most of the problem comes from nitrates, phosphates, and sewage and farm sewage pollution. So 15% of our waters are clean.
Is that arable? Is that arable though, or beef as well?
It's both. It's both. Yeah, it's all of it really put together.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
It's quite a problem. I mean, there are solutions to this. I'm not saying we should get rid of all beef. I think we need to be sensible and go for beef once a week if you have to do that, rather than having to depend on meat every single day, really. And of course, we've got other problems with large monocultures of animals. It encourages the type of bugs that we're suffering with now, really. Bird flu. We only need, in the future, if you think about it, we only need a bird flu that is just as pathogenic as say it was as pathogenic as HIV or COVID. Those things are going to happen, and it's encouraged by large animal populations, monoculture populations, really. I like meat. I used to like meat. I'm a vegetarian, but I think we have to be aware of the potential problems that are out there, really.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we spoke to Tim Thorpe from the Vegan Society as well a couple of weeks ago, and I still do hope and expect in the future to speak to organisations like the NFU who are potentially hopefully coming on in the coming months. But yeah, I mean, we spoke.
It's a journey for all of us working together, I think. Really, it's not. I'm not like in an extreme position. I think vegans have a much more extreme position, and they don't even accept we can use honey, for example.
That was actually what was fascinating. Was certainly from the conversation we had, they have a green recovery paper, and yeah, if you listen to the podcast, it's really, I was surprised at some of the opinions they held as retaining a small number of livestock, as in small being as a percentage of what we have now. I think it was a reduction of 88%, I think it was. So they still expect livestock to be in the system because of the carbon capture of I think it's grasslands and underhoof of capturing carbon in the soil, as well as I think we spoke to him about honey as well, and I think it was I think that was out of bounds, but only on certain occasions as well. I don't think it was always out of bounds, so you never know. I mean, maybe your beekeeping would still be would still be allowed under this system. Not that it's going to be a system. It's not a